The cold lights of the alien ship flickered against metal walls that seemed endless. Jack Carter woke to the faint hum of engines and the uncomfortable feeling of being watched. His head throbbed. He remembered the battle, his squad ambushed near the asteroid belt, the sudden flash of green energy beams and then darkness. Now when he opened his eyes fully, he realized he was in a cage. The bars were smooth and silver, humming faintly with energy. He touched them once and felt a sting that made his hand pull back quickly. Not ordinary steel, something advanced, meant to hold even the strongest of creatures. Outside the cage, the room looked like a throne chamber. Large, polished floors and strange glowing banners written in alien symbols. It felt less like a prison and more like an exhibition hall. And then she entered, Lady Seraphine. She was tall, graceful, and carried herself like royalty. Her skin shimmered faintly under the lights, and her eyes glowed with a sharp intelligence. She wore flowing robes that trailed across the floor as if the ship itself bowed to her steps. Behind her walked armored guards, silent but ready to obey her command. "So," Seraphine said in a clear, commanding voice. "The human wakes." Jack pushed himself up, straightening his back despite the pain in his body. He looked at her directly. "Where am I?" he demanded. Seraphine tilted her head, a faint smile touching her lips. "You are aboard the flagship of the Veyari Empire. To most, this would be an honor. To you, I suppose it is a cage." Jack's jaw tightened. "I'm not your pet," the smile widened. "They all say that in the beginning." The guards chuckled softly, but Seraphine raised her hand, silencing them. She moved closer to the cage, studying him as one might study a rare animal. Her eyes traced his face, his stance, the way he refused to lower his gaze. "Interesting," she murmured. "Most humans break quickly. They cry, beg, or hide. You look at me as if you are my equal." Jack's voice was steady. "Because I am." Her laughter echoed through the chamber, sharp yet melodic. "Bold, defiant. That will make this more entertaining." She circled the cage slowly, her robes whispering against the polished floor. "You humans fascinate the Council. So fragile, yet so loud. So young, yet so stubborn. Perhaps that is why your kind survives against odds that should have destroyed you long ago." Jack didn't respond. His silence was his shield. Seraphine stopped in front of him again. "You will learn your place," she said softly. "I do not keep pets out of need. I keep them out of choice, and you? You may prove amusing." Jack's hands clenched at his sides. "I'll never be your pet," he said, his voice low but firm. Her eyes sparkled with interest rather than anger. "Then you will be my challenge." The days that followed were strange and testing. Jack's cage was moved to a grand chamber filled with luxuries meant to impress. He was given food on golden trays, alien fruits that glowed faintly, meat that shimmered with spices unknown to Earth. But every bite reminded him he was still trapped, being observed like an experiment. Seraphine visited often. At first she spoke little, only watching him. Then she began asking questions. Why do humans fight wars they cannot win? Why do you cling to hope when stronger species surrender? Why does your race refuse to bend? Jack's answers were simple. Because that's who we are. We don't quit. Sometimes she laughed at him. Sometimes she fell silent, lost in thought. Her guards whispered that their lady was wasting her time on a human. But she ignored them. Each day she returned, drawn by something she could not yet name. One evening she brought a small object into the chamber, a puzzle cube glowing with alien runes. She placed it in the cage. "Solve this," she ordered. "It takes most captives weeks. Some never solve it at all." Jack studied the cube. Its lights shifted when touched, patterns moving like stars. It was frustrating, almost mocking. Hours passed, but he refused to stop. His determination surprised Seraphine. Finally, when the last rune aligned, the cube shone brightly before dimming into silence. He placed it on the floor calmly. "Done." Seraphine leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. She had expected failure. Instead, she saw pride, intelligence, and focus. A faint warmth stirred in her chest, though she quickly masked it with a cool expression. "Perhaps luck," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. Jack smirked. "Or perhaps humans are more than you think." Her gaze lingered on him longer than before. For the first time, doubt touched her thoughts. Could it be that this human was not like the others? That night, as Jack lay awake on the floor of the cage, he replayed the day's events in his mind. He didn't trust her kindness, didn't believe her gifts were anything more than tools to test or break him. But still he noticed something different in her eyes, something he couldn't quite define. Maybe curiosity. Maybe respect. But he swore to himself that no matter what game she played, he would not break. He would not bow. Humanity might be caged in this moment, but inside him the fire still burned. And Seraphine, for all her power and arrogance, was beginning to feel its heat. The cage no longer felt like a victory for her. It felt like the beginning of something else, a challenge she had never faced before. The days turned into weeks, but Jack Carter did not change. He still carried himself with the same quiet pride, even though he remained inside the glowing silver cage. The other humans who had been captured before him had given in quickly. They begged, they obeyed, they lost their spirit. Jack was different. His willpower stood like a wall, and Lady Seraphine noticed it more with each passing day. Seraphine's visits became longer. She told herself it was curiosity, nothing more. Yet, when she sat in her grand chair watching him, she found herself speaking freely. She asked questions about Earth, about the blue skies, the oceans, and the simple food Jack described. Bread fresh from the oven, fruits that grew under the sun and the warmth of fire on a cold night. He answered calmly, painting pictures with simple words. At times she imagined those places as he spoke. She, who had lived among stars her entire life, began to see the charm of a small world called Earth. Still, Seraphine did not show weakness in front of her guards. When others were around, she spoke coldly, calling him her possession. But when the chamber was empty, her words softened without her realizing it. One day, Seraphine arrived with a challenge. She entered carrying a long staff of silver with strange designs carved into it. The guards set up a training ring in the chamber, a circle surrounded by humming walls of energy. "Step out," she commanded. The cage door opened for the first time since his capture. Jack walked forward carefully. He looked around. The guards stood alert, hands near their weapons. Seraphine held the staff in her hand like a warrior queen. "You will face me," she said. Jack raised an eyebrow. "You want to fight me?" "Not fight," she replied, her eyes narrowing. "Test. Show me if your spirit matches your words." The staff hummed as she activated it, glowing faintly. Jack was given no weapon. He looked at her, then at his empty hands, and shrugged. "Fair enough," the match began. Seraphine moved with grace, swinging the staff quickly. Jack dodged, barely missing the strike. Again she attacked, and again he avoided it. She expected him to stumble, to fall. Instead, he adapted, using speed and instinct. His movements were not elegant, but they were sharp and real. Minutes passed. Sweat dripped down Jack's face, but his eyes never left hers. Finally, when she swung low, he caught the staff with his bare hands and twisted. For a brief moment, the mighty noblewoman found herself off balance. The guards gasped. Jack did not strike. He released the staff and stepped back, breathing hard. "You see? Humans don't just survive, we fight. We endure." Seraphine stood still, staring at him. Her chest rose and fell quickly, not only from the match but from something deeper. She lowered the staff slowly. For the first time she felt respect. Not forced, not out of amusement, but true respect. That night Seraphine sat alone in her chamber. Her mind replayed the moment Jack could have struck her but didn't. He had power in that instant, yet he chose restraint. It unsettled her. In her empire, power was always used, never held back. Why would a human, a supposed lesser being, show mercy? The question kept her awake. The next day, whispers ran through the ship. Some nobles had heard of the training ring. They muttered that Lady Seraphine was too close to her human captive. It was dangerous, they said. Humans were not equals, they were pets, servants, curiosities. To see a noble treat one differently was to invite scandal. Seraphine ignored them, but inside she felt pressure building. The Council of Lords would not overlook this for long. Still, she continued her visits. Sometimes she brought puzzles. Sometimes she brought objects of art, testing if Jack understood them. Other times she brought questions about war and honor. Each time Jack answered in his own way, sometimes serious, sometimes with humor that made even Seraphine's lips curl into a hidden smile. One evening, as the two spoke, an alarm suddenly blared across the ship. The walls trembled and the guards rushed to their stations. Seraphine frowned, signaling her guards to stay close. "What is happening?" Jack asked quickly. Before anyone could respond, 3 masked figures burst into the chamber. They were not her loyal guards. They were assassins sent by rival nobles who wanted Seraphine removed. Their weapons glowed, aimed directly at her. The guards fought back, but one assassin slipped past and charged toward Seraphine. For a split second she froze, surprised by the speed of the attack. And then Jack moved. Though still in chains, he lunged forward, tackling the assassin with his full weight. The two crashed onto the floor. Jack wrestled the weapon away, his strength fueled not by orders but by his own decision to act. The guards quickly subdued the others, but it was Jack who saved her from the strike that would have ended her life. When the chamber finally grew quiet, Seraphine stood staring at him. He was breathing hard, his wrists marked red from the chains, but his eyes were steady. "You protected me," she whispered, almost unable to believe it. Jack gave a tired smile. "I don't fight for you. I fight because it's the right thing to do." Her heart beat faster than she wished to admit. She, who had believed humans were weak and beneath her, now stood alive only because of one. The guards looked at one another uneasily. They had seen what happened. They had seen the humans' courage, and they had seen the way their lady looked at him now, with something more than curiosity. Later, when Jack was returned to his cage, Seraphine remained standing in the chamber long after the others left. Her mind swirled with questions. Why did he save her? Why did his words feel heavier than the speeches of her own council? For the first time in her life, she doubted the Empire's truth. Perhaps humans were not pets. Perhaps they were something the galaxy had underestimated. And deep within her, she felt a dangerous thought rise. What if she no longer wished to see him as a prisoner at all? The attack changed everything. Lady Seraphine had always seen herself as untouchable, a noble standing above fear. Yet in that moment, she had been one step away from death, and the one who saved her was not a loyal guard or powerful ally, but the very human she had once called her pet. The following days on the ship felt different. Whispers spread through the corridors. Everyone spoke of the human who had dared to protect Lady Seraphine. Some called it foolishness. Others called it bravery. And some quietly began to wonder if humans were more than the Empire claimed. Seraphine tried to appear calm, but inside her mind was restless. She replayed Jack's words, "I don't fight for you. I fight because it's the right thing to do." She had heard many speeches in her life, leaders, generals, and lords all speaking with pride and authority. Yet none of their words had carried the same weight as Jack's simple statement. One evening she visited him again. His cage was the same, but the way she looked at him had changed. "You could have escaped," she said quietly. "When the assassins came, you could have run." "You didn't. Why?" Jack shrugged. "Running isn't what humans do when someone's life is in danger. We stand and fight, even if it costs us everything." Her voice softened. "And you would risk your life for someone who called you a pet?" Jack met her gaze firmly. "I don't care about titles. I care about what's right." For the first time, Seraphine felt something she had never allowed herself to feel toward a captive, respect so deep it shook her belief. She turned away, hiding her thoughts, but her heart knew the truth. But the Empire did not sleep. Word of Seraphine's unusual interest in her humans spread to the Council of Lords. In their grand chamber, filled with cold stone and golden light, the rulers of the Veari Empire debated. "Lady Seraphine grows weak," one lord sneered. "She treats a human as if he is her equal. This cannot be allowed. She must prove her loyalty," another declared. "Bring her before the council. Demand she breaks the human in front of us or destroys him." The decision was swift. A message was sent to Seraphine. She was to appear before the council, with her human, and prove once and for all where her loyalty lay. When the day came, the hall of the council was filled with nobles. Tall pillars stretched toward the ceiling, glowing with strange light. Rows of alien lords sat in their seats, their eyes sharp and unforgiving. Jack was brought forward, chains around his wrists, though he walked tall, unbroken. Seraphine stood beside him, her heart heavy. She could feel the weight of every eye upon her. The High Lord rose, his voice echoing across the chamber. "Lady Seraphine," he said coldly, "you stand accused of weakness. You are commanded to break this human before us, show us he is nothing but a creature beneath us, or prove your loyalty another way by ending him here and now." The hall fell silent. All waited for her answer. Seraphine looked at Jack. He did not beg. He did not plead. He simply stood with quiet dignity, as if ready for whatever came next. His calmness gave her strength she did not expect. Her voice, when she spoke, was clear and strong. "No," gasps filled the chamber. The Lord shifted in anger and disbelief. I will not break him, she continued, because he is not a pet. He is not weak, he is human. And in him, I have seen more courage, more honor, and more spirit than in this entire hall combined. Her words struck like lightning. The lords shouted in outrage. Some slammed their fists on the table. Treason, they cried. Blasphemy. But Seraphine stood tall, her eyes blazing. You call him lesser, yet when assassins came for me, it was not you who saved me. It was him. When others cower, he stands. When others surrender, he defies. You ask me to destroy him, but I tell you this. If the Empire continues to see humans as pets, then the Empire is blind. Jack raised his head, his voice steady. Humanity will never bow. We may be caged. We may be beaten. But we will never stop fighting. Not for power, not for titles, but for what is right. The chamber shook with noise. Some lords shouted for his death. Others, though quieter, whispered to each other. For the first time, doubt rippled through the Empire's leaders. The council ended in chaos. Seraphine was warned that her defiance would not be forgotten. She left the hall with Jack beside her, guarded closely but untouched. The storm was coming, she knew. Back on her ship, Seraphine dismissed her guards and turned to Jack. Her expression, for once, showed no mask. You have changed everything, she said. Jack gave a small smile. No, you changed yourself. You saw what others refused to see. For a long moment, they stood in silence. Two beings from different worlds, one an alien noblewoman, the other a human soldier, bound not by chains or rank, but by something deeper, respect, trust, and the beginnings of something the galaxy had never known. News of the council spread quickly. Across the Empire, whispers turned into sparks. Other species, long treated as lesser, heard of the human who stood unbroken and the noble who defied the lords. Hope, a rare thing, began to grow, and far away on Earth, stories reached hidden resistance fighters. Stories that their people were not forgotten, that one of their own had faced the Empire and stood tall. Jack and Seraphine knew the path ahead would not be easy. The Empire would not forgive. Battles would come. Sacrifices would be demanded. But they also knew one thing. Together they had lit a fire that could spread across the stars, for humanity was never meant to be a pet. Humanity was meant to rise, and with allies like Seraphine, the galaxy itself would soon learn the truth.